Okay, Purim is a time of making lots of jokes, and we want to try to understand a little bit about the idea of humor and jokes. I'm not a comedian. I'm the guy whose jokes always fall flat, and the reason is something that H.R. Spalding. He has an encyclopedia of humor. And he writes that the encyclopedia of Jewish humor is that the most powerful thing to destroy a joke is to analyze it. So we have to understand that there's got to be something unique. Now, there's such a thing as a Jewish joke, and Joe Telushkin, in his book on Jewish humor, has a great definition of it. A Jewish joke is something that involves a Jew, and if you take out the Jew and put in a different ethnic group, it's not funny. Okay, I'll give you a couple of examples. The famous Jewish joke, a kid comes running into his grandfather. Grandpa, Babe Ruth just hit his 60th home run. That used to be an important thing a long time ago. And his grandpa's response is, this what Babe Ruth did. It good for the Jews or not good for the Jews? You want to update it? A kid runs into his grandfather, the Seahawks just won the Super Bowl. If he's a Puerto Rican, I don't think, is it good for the Puerto Ricans or bad for the Puerto Ricans? I don't think he's going to say that, right? So there's something unique there about good for the Jews, bad for the Jews. So what is a joke? A joke is you're flowing along, you're telling a story, you're telling a narrative, and then the punchline is always what's not expected. Takes you by surprise. That's what makes you laugh. But is that a good thing? Leitzanut. We call it even leitzanut. All right, so is leitzanut a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Let's see an example of leitzanut in the Tanakh. Okay, so open up. Well, maybe just start. The very first source shows you the value of jokes. The very first source. Before he gave his shir, he told a joke. Okay? Ubadchu Rabbanan, he entertained the rabbis. But then they sat in awe. In other words, the idea is that the joke can loosen you up a little bit. But we'll have to see why and what the purpose is. So here's the narrative. Source number 2. It's a story in Malachim. You all have probably heard about the Baal and Eliyahu, where they're worshiping the Baal, and Eliyahu wants to show the nation that the Baal is nonsense, it's not true. To take a quick look through it. Okay, source 2. Okay, and they made a contest. You'll see, I'm not going to read the whole thing, I'm going to just show you what's going on. They made Eliyahu said, let's make a contest. Each of us is going to bring an animal. Each of us is going to bring wood. Each of us will have a mizbeach. We'll put the wood on the mizbeach, and we will wait for fire to come down from heaven to ignite the wood, and whoever's korban gets ignited, that's the true God. You see where that's saying? Okay, let them choose one bull for themselves, put it on the wood, but not apply fire. I'm in the third line. I too will prepare the other bull, place it on the wood. I will not apply fire. You call out in the name of your God, I'll call out in the name of Hashem, and we'll see what happens. So, the people, because Eliyahu was trying to show the people that the Baal is not true, everybody said, great idea, great test. Okay? So, and then Eliyahu told them, you choose the bull in case you'll think that there's something wrong. Anyway, they took the bull in the middle of the paragraph, and they prepared it, and they called out in the name of the Baal from morning till noon. All right, in the psukim, if you want to see the psukim, it's pasuk Chav Hey. All right, Vikiru b'shem. I'm sorry, it's pasuk Chav Vav. Right, Vayasu vayikru b'shem haBaal me'aboker ad hatzarayim limor haBaal aneinu. And what was the response? Ein kol ve'ein oneh. Silence. So now this is going on all morning. You can see in the look. It's really kedai to see Pasuk Chav Zayin in the Hebrew, but we will see it in the English also if you need. Vayihi batzaharayim vayehatel bahem Eliyahu. Vayehatel means he mocked them. And what did he say? Kiru v'kol gadol. You got to call louder. Ki Elohim hu. It's a God. Kisi yesh derech lo. He may be distracted. He may be asleep. He may be going to the bathroom. You got to wake him up. And of course they did that. What just went on here? What just went on? What did Eliyahu just do?
He mocked their conception.
He made fun of them. Okay, so that leads us to the next, let's see, is it the next source? No, you want to just skip down to, let's see, what have I got it? Kol Sanus, I don't have the right source sheet. Let me take one of your source sheets because I don't have the numbers right. You have a source of Megillah? You have a source of Megillah? I think it's probably source 4. What have you got? Source 4 Megillah? Hamar Rav Nachman, Kol Sanusa Asira. Leitzonus, mockery, is prohibited. You're not allowed to mock. Chutz, bar, mi leitzanusa d'avodas kochavim. Disharia. You are allowed to make leitzanus of avodah zarah, which is what Eliyahu was doing. But we have to know why. Why do we say that? What's wrong with leitzanus? And why is leitzanus d'avodah zarah? Why is that yes, okay? So, says the Maharal, it's a cryptic Maharal, but I brought it and you can have a look at it. What makes us laugh? Why does a person make fun of something? Well, they make fun of something that they want to refute, but they can't refute it intellectually. Because to refute it intellectually is hard work. Okay? So they make a joke out of it. So when you can't refute it intellectually, you refute it with a joke. Says the Maharal, because intellectual is hard work. And people like to be comfortable. Alright? So what they're doing with Leit Sanud is they're undermining significance. They're taking something significant and they don't agree with it. So instead of refuting it intellectually, they make fun of it. So what they're doing is they are undermining the significance of something that's significant. That's prohibited. You want to undermine something, you got to confront it intellectually. With one exception. Avodah Zarah. Because Avodah Zarah is something that's insignificant. And people give it significance. And therefore we have to attack it by mocking it, by knocking it down and showing that it's not really significant. But let's see now, what did I just do with the source sheet that I gave you guys? No. Oh, yeah. So I want you to see sources number... I have to take the right... I don't... Just a minute, it's not going to be the right number. What happens? Are there other source sheets or everybody goes? No, extras. Are there extras? Oh, here, okay, this one, good. Because I have two different, I have an old source sheet and a new source sheet. The numbers aren't the same. Okay, so you guys want to see sources 7 and 8. 7 and 8. Al tochach leitz. Don't rebuke a mocker. Pen yisna'echa. He's going to hate you. Hochach lechacham. Give rebuke to a wise person. V'ye'aveka. And he will love you. And then source 8, leitz takeh, smash the mocker, upeti yarim, and the simple person will become smart. V'ochiach lenavon yavin dat, and when you chastise an understanding person, he will understand. So, why does it say leitz takeh? Why does it say al tochach leitz? Don't give rebuke to a leitz. What's the idea of a leitz? A leitz doesn't take anything seriously. Nothing is serious. You make a joke out of everything. So, if he doesn't take things seriously, what he really says is, there was a book in the 60s, I'm okay, you're okay, whatever, I'm happy the way I am, and why are you bothering me? Right? So it's going to bother him that you are trying to rebuke him because he's not interested in improving. But a wise person, but you give rebuke to a wise person, then he will love you. He will appreciate it. Let's see an example in Chazal of. Okay. Let's see an example in Chazal of what Chazal call litzanut. All right, look at source number 3. So everybody knows the story. Cain kills Hevel, right? Cain kills Hevel. God comes to Hevel and says, "Where's your brother?" And what's Hevel's response? Hashomer achi anochi. Look how the Medrash elaborates on that. Kivan shomer lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu e Hevel achicha amar le lo yadati. I don't know where he is. Hashomer achi anochi. Am I his guardian? Atahu shomer kol habrios. You, God, are the guardian of all brios. Gatam mevakesh miyadi. And you're asking me where he is? That was the exchange. Says the Medrash. Here's a metaphor story. Okay? Mashal mahadavar domeh. Ganav. You have a thief. Ganav kelim balayla. He snuck into a warehouse and he stole merchandise in the night. V'lo nitfas, and he got out. Laboker in the morning. Tafso hashoer. The watchman caught him in the morning. Amar le. So the watchman says to the thief, Lama ganafta et takilim. Why did you steal? It's not right. Look what the ganav answers. Amar le ani ganav. I'm a thief. V'lo inachti umanoti. I did not abandon my profession, meaning I did my job. I'm a thief. I did my job. Avalata, what's your job? Your job is a watchman. You didn't do your job. And you're blaming me? You guys, how do you react? So you couldn't make this up, but there was a real story many, many years ago, just to show you how people can just be, I'm not responsible. There was a car thief. There's a real story. Car thief snuck into a parking lot and stole a car. And on his way out, as he was driving back home, he had a car accident and he was killed. The family sued the parking lot because of their lack of security. Right out of the Medrash. Right out of the Medrash. Right?
It was a paid parking lot? Or?
Did they win? Who won? Did the family win?
Luckily, they threw it out of court. Today, they might win. I don't know. We're going back 30 years. Okay? But that's exactly what the Medrash. What's going on here? What is going on here? This is a joke, but it's a joke. That's not so funny. But the idea here is that he is unloading responsibility. Jewish jokes are here. Normally a person makes a joke because they want to unload responsibility. Jewish jokes usually, a joke always points out a weakness. A joke always points out a weakness. But usually the joke is to excuse the weakness. And a Jewish joke is to make ourselves responsible to identify the weakness, to fix the weakness. And if you study Jewish jokes, and there's again Joe Chalushkin's book on Jewish humor is a very good pastime for when you have free time to read. Now, not instead of Seder, but when you need to read something, it's very good. He points out that the Jewish jokes would fall flat if you took out the Jew, like the Babe Ruth story. A couple of other examples. So, you know that in the 1980s there was a big blackout. The whole eastern seaboard was blacked out. The 80s or the 90s. Happened a few times. But one time it was from Boston down to Washington, D.C. The whole eastern seaboard was blacked out. And the story goes that there was a guy named Max who in Brooklyn was standing on a ladder to change a burned out light bulb. And just as he's screwing in the light bulb, the whole eastern seaboard blacked out. His wife looks out the window and says, "Max, look what you did." I don't think an Italian wife would have said that. Why? Why? Where'd that come from? Gemara. Chayav Adam Lomar Bishvili Nivra Ha'olam. Every Jew has to say the world was created for me. As Jews, our DNA tells us, you know what? Our actions in our bedroom, our actions in our kitchen, our actions in our office have cosmic impact. And therefore she could really think that, you know what? Max has the potential, if he messed up the light bulb, he could black out the whole eastern seaboard. But you could never have that. I don't think that would work without a Jew. Another one. So, the wife wakes up at 3 o'clock in the morning and she sees her husband's pacing the floor. Yankel, what's wrong? I owe a guy $10,000. It's due tomorrow. I don't have the money. So the wife said, so why are you pacing? What's the point? But there's a musar here. We don't worry about things over which we have no control. That's really the message. If you don't have any control over it, why are you worrying about it? And that's something that people like to do. And as a Torah Jew, we say, wait a minute. We have to worry what we can control, and what we can't control, we don't have to. We shouldn't spend time worrying about it. You guys like these jokes? There's one I tell in my shir. So the guys in my shir, I apologize. The guys who have been to my shir, but it's a very important joke, in my opinion. So there's a banquet hall, then there's lots of speakers to praise the guest of honor. And a Yiddish mama turns to her husband and whispers loudly, "What's such a prominent person needs so many character witnesses?" There's a lot of message there. Okay? So what's this idea of not rebuking a lates? A person who makes mockery of everything, what he's really saying is nothing is very important. Nothing is significant. Nothing really matters. That's really what the lates is saying. He's undermining the significance of everything. When we make fun and we tell jokes, but we don't take jokes to undermine the significance. A good Jewish joke is to amplify significance. Look at our mistake. Look at what's wrong. And we have to fix. That's the opposite of a secular joke. That's the opposite of late sanut. So look at source 9, because now we got to tie this to Purim. Directly to Purim. Source 9. Zachor et asher asa lecha Amalek. You see that pasuk of number 8? The Medrash now is going to connect Amalek to source number 8. Leitz takeh peti yarim. Smash the lates, and the simple person becomes wise. Who is this lates takeh? You guys have that source? Am I giving you the right source? Number 9?
Is the lates and the simpleton the same person?
Yeah, a lates is a person who makes. No, the opposite. The lates is the guy who makes fun of everything.
And the simpleton
is and the petty is the simpleton. So first it says, well, you guys have a different number? I'm sorry. Number 8. Okay.
No, I got that.
So yeah, I said I have 2 different source sheets. One has an extra source. Leitz takeh peti yarim. Leitz takeh ze Amalek. That's Amalek. Peti yarim ze Yitro. What's the connection? B'shor shabo Amalek lilachem im Yisrael, maktiv, vayavo Amalek vaylachem im Yisrael birfidim. Al yedei sherifu yedei min haTorah umin hamitzvos. Amalek came to fight the Jewish people. Why are we calling him a lates? And Yitro is the petty, Because Yitro saw what happened and he did tshuva. Yitro is viewed as a simpleton. But the lates, we smashed the lates. Okay? And Rav Goldberg talks about this. He said, wait, we smashed the lates and Yitro got smart. Why didn't the lates get smart? Listen to the problem. Lates takeh, you smashed the lates, the one who's making fun, it was Yitro, and we'll see in a minute why he was called a lates, and the petty becomes wise. So we mentioned this in the Shmuz, I think, last week. What's this idea of Amalek? What's going on here? Vayavo Amalek, let's see source number 10 and 11. Zachor asher asa lecha Amalek baderech b'tzeitchem mimitzrayim. By the way, the word derech, we didn't talk about it so much on Tuesday. We'll talk about it a little more here. Why is that word baderech repeating itself? Asher korcha baderech vayizanei b'cha kol hanechashalim acharecha v'ata ayethi ageya. Asher korcha baderech. Says Rashi, Loshon mikre, coincidence. Davar acher, Loshon keri v'tuma, defilement. Shayat mitame b'mishkav zocher. Davar acher, Loshon kor v'chom, heat and cold. Tzinana v'hifshircha miritichatcha. Why? What did he cool down? Shahayu ovdei kochavim yireim lihilachem bachem. After Egypt and the miracles and the Egyptians are just destroyed, everybody was afraid, we don't touch the Jews. And Amalek comes and starts up with them. We mentioned this on Tuesday, the burning bath, where nobody wants to go in. He jumps in, and he gets burned, but he cooled down the bath for everybody else. So, what does that have to do with lates? A lates doesn't think anything matters. Nothing is significant. Whatever you tell me is significant, I'm just going to dismiss it with a joke. Nothing is significant. We mentioned it on Tuesday, whatever. No significance. So that is the lates. And therefore, you hit the lates, there's nothing you can do to make it better. And that's why we mentioned on Tuesday, Kiyad al Kes Ka, God says my throne can never be complete, because whatever miracle I do, the Amalek people are just going to say, not significant. No. And they make fun of it. Okay? What do you say like this? You could say like that. And everything is fun. But the petty, he's a simpleton. He sees what goes on. He gets smart. But why didn't the lates get smart? Because the lates takeh, all right, is autochach lates, because he will hate you for it. Why are you trying to make me improve? Why are you trying to make me improve? There's a Rabbeinu Yonah. I want to find it and be able to quote the exact pasuk. I'll have to tell. Oh, here it is. No? Yeah. Yes. Okay. So there's a pasuk in Mishlei. Mitzaref lakesef. Mitzaref lakesef is how you purify silver. Vikur lizahav, also known as purification of the silver ore and gold ore. V'ish lefi mehalalo. And every person, according to mehalalo, it's a little bit ambiguous because there's a pronoun there. Mehalalo could mean who that he praises, or mehalalo that he is praised. But Rabbeinu Yonah says that it means that who do you praise? Who do you think is important? That defines who you are. Ish lefi mahalalo. Look who you praise. Who do you think is significant? So if nothing is significant, that's a lace. That's a lates. And the purpose of late sanut, the purpose of regular late sanut, is to undermine purpose. Nothing is really significant. And a Jew lives for significance. The lates, this is the Rav Hutner talks about it in his articles on Purim, okay, is that he wants just to knock everything away, to be mevatel. Nothing. Whatever. The perfect word is whatever. Okay? And what you confer significance on, that's what's important. So some people nothing is significant. All right? Nothing is significant. And to us, everything has to be significant. Okay, and therefore, if you ever tell a joke, if you ever have a late sanut, it's got to be because we're looking to improve. We're looking to find what's wrong. Again, famous Jewish joke, Jewish Robinson Crusoe on the island, and they come to finally save him. Everybody knows this, don't you?
Oh.
And he wants to show what he did. Here's my tomato patch, and here's my my sheep corral, and I was able to get my milk and my meat and my wool. Okay, and here are 2 synagogues. So they ask him, wait a minute, you're only one person here. Why do you need 2 synagogues? This is the one I daven in, and this is the one I don't daven in. Somehow or other, I don't know, a Muslim wouldn't tell the joke like that. But what does that say? It says we're so divided. Am mifuzaru miforad bein amim, that on a desert island we have to have something to oppose. Well, that's the good news or the bad news. We're making a joke about ourselves to show that we need to improve. That we need to improve. See, Amalek, Asher Karcha. What did Amalek say? Mikre. Mikre means coincidence. Everything is a coincidence. The minute you say everything is a coincidence, so that means nothing has significance. Nothing has significance. That is antithetical to the Jewish approach. In our world, everything is significant. Except one thing that's not significant, that people make significant. Avodah Zarah. And that's why we could also make fun of certain things like money, the pursuit of wealth, because that's the modern Avodah Zarah. When we talk about Avodah Zarah means you impute value to something that has no value. That's Avodah Zarah. You're worshiping something that is that's meaningless. Today, there are a lot of Avodah Zarahs, not idols, but lots and lots of Avodah Zarahs. And there, we could make fun. Here's another good joke. Only Jewish joke. Could only work. So there's a guy, Jew, made a lot of money, and he wants to move into a wealthy neighborhood that is waspy, and they don't really let Jews in. So he changes his name to McCormick, starts dressing in a white suit. Then he goes to join the country club. And he fills out the questionnaire. Your name, where were you born, da-da-dum. Okay, and then in the verbal interview, they ask him coincidentally, oh, by the way, what's your religion? Me? I'm a goy. Okay? You can't, what did they say? There used to be a commercial for cigarettes. You can take the country, you can take the cigarette out of the country, but you can't take the country out of the cigarette, something like that. You can take the Jew out of the community, but you can't. Actually, you can take the Jew. You can take the community and move them away, but you can't take the Jew out of the Jew. That's the Jew. And that joke shows that as hard as we try to get away from our Judaism, somehow or other it's just embedded in us. That's the power of that joke. Yeah, when you hear Jewish jokes, you got to ask, what's the message? What's the power? Okay, and Purim looks like coincidence. Purim looks like coincidence. Mikra. That's why God's name isn't mentioned. God operates behind the scenes, and somebody who looks at it without thinking about God sees pure coincidence. Please remember that the Purim story started and ended over a period of 9 years. Okay, something happened, and then 9 years later, Haman was hung. But in the middle, a lot of stuff went on, and it could easily have been interpreted as coincidence. Stuff happens. There's politics. There's intrigue. Okay, stuff happens. And the message of Purim is that everything that happens is significant. Amalek says Mikrahu. The non-Jewish world says Mikrahu, and we say significance. We say there's meaning and there's purpose. There's another aspect of humor, and both Spalding and Toulouse can talk about that. When you're in pain, humor is one of the ways to alleviate the pain. And that's why Toulouse and Spalding both met. There are so many jokes about anti-Semitism. The Holocaust led to black humor, because sometimes you've got to get above what's happening and realize that there's something beyond where you are right now. And sometimes that could be, Jewish jokes, there were a lot of Jewish jokes from the Holocaust. A lot of them. And again, it was because they had to go beyond where they were. If they couldn't get beyond where they are, they're going to just collapse. It's almost sometimes ridiculing their own weakness also. When we tell a joke, it's a demand to fix what we're making fun of. We're making fun of something because it needs to be fixed. And that's why it's a legitimate thing, and that's what Purim does. Because Purim is nahafahu. Everything is the opposite of what it appears to be. It appeared to be coincidence, but it's not. The joke takes you along, and this is Amalek. We're baderech. We're going somewhere. And what does Amalek do? He comes and cuts us off. That's really what a joke does. Because you have a narrative, and it's going, and you're expecting something to happen, and all of a sudden something unexpected happens. Right? So, that's funny. But in history, we have to realize that when something's running along and it's supposed to happen, Purim, what was supposed to happen? We're supposed to be destroyed. And yet, all of a sudden, the opposite happens. So, in a joke, that's funny. In real life, that's God. And the idea that Amalek imputes everything to be coincidence, and to us everything is significance, and it's not what's on the surface, it's what's below the surface. And the message of Purim, when we dress up in masks, right? Masks, and Purim is a time of masks to tell you that what it looks like on the surface is not really what's going on. You all heard Esther, the root of the word Esther is mustar, it's hidden. Okay? When Jews do something all the time, there's a reason for it. There's a reason why on Purim, somehow or other, on Hanukkah we don't wear masks. On Purim we wear masks, and on Hanukkah we don't wear masks. Okay? Because Purim is the time where you want to show that what it looks like on the surface is not true. There's another deeper aspect. You've heard the idea, the Kabbalistic idea, that what's the significance of Yom Kippur? Yom Kippurim, it's Ki-Purim. Yom Kippur is like Purim. Wait, so what's your benchmark? Your benchmark is Purim. Yom Kippur is like Purim. Is there any combination? Is there any relationship between Yom Kippur and Purim? Yes. One is that we serve God completely detached from our physicality. We behave like angels. And on Purim, we entrench ourselves in the physicality to the extent that we lose our seichel. We're only physical beings. And the chiddush is that we can serve God without any seichel. There's an intrinsic DNA in our physicality that also lets us serve God. And that's a higher level, because it's much harder to serve God within your physical level than it is on Yom Kippur. Everybody gets a high on Yom Kippur. Very easy to serve God when you're fasting. Not so easy to serve God all year when you're in the physical world. And Purim is a time when we have to show that even though it's physical, there's something below the surface. There's something more fundamental. And it's a time when the real challenge is to serve God with your physicality, because what you're saying is everything about me is directed, everything about me is devoted to serving God. Everything that happens is directed from above. But it doesn't look like that. That's Amalek. That we only look at the surface. A good joke tells you, look below the surface. Look below what appears to be happening. we'll leave it at that. Your challenge for Purim again is to think carefully about what reality is. We're in times where, you guys remember the name Saddam Hussein means anything to you guys? Okay, right? He invaded Kuwait, America attacked, and he started shooting Scud missiles at Israel, 39 Scud missiles. You know when they captured him? You know when they found him in the bunker there? Pictures. You know when it was? It was Purim. We remember it so clearly. Okay, it was on Purim that it was just, we're hiding. We have the day after Purim, there was an ecological disaster in Israel. There were safe rooms. We had to have a safe room. This was before the mamadim. Everybody had to have a room with plastic sheeting so that you could go in case there was a chemical attack. And once he was captured, all the plastic was ripped down and thrown in the garbage. Can you imagine tons and tons of plastic sheeting being put into the garbage in the same day? That was an ecological disaster. But it happened on Purim. And we didn't think it was coincidental. It was amazing. All right? We were davening and worried and everything, and then all of a sudden they announce on Purim. So Purim's coming. I know it looks like, everybody wants to say, of course, Iran is Paras, it's Persia. One thing I'm not is besides not being a comedian, I'm also not a prophet. Okay? But you got to daven. You got to know that, you know what? It looks bad. I don't know what's going to happen, but part of it had to do, what did Purim teach us? That it wasn't what it appeared to be. Everybody thought Mordechai was the problem. Mordechai, you don't want to bow down, you're the problem. Okay, and it turned out Mordechai was the solution. What was the solution? The solution was Lech Knosset Kol HaYehudim, unity, tzom, fast, daven, and that turned out to be the solution. So we have to know that I'm not even sure, I don't even know whether to say it looks good or it looks bad. Okay, I'm not sure whether attacking Iran now by Trump is going to be good for us or bad. It could send us, as you remember from a half a year ago, it could send us into the bomb shelters. But one thing we have to know, it's not being guided by Trump, just like Purim wasn't guided by Achashverosh. We have to really believe that. Okay, and it's not so easy when you're bombarded with media. So that's part of the challenge of Purim, is to realize there's no mikra. Okay, that what it looks like on the surface is not really what's going on, that the real reality is below the surface.